Hey, what's up, guys? It's Braden Sky, and today we're going to be talking about why I decided to live in my car. And I've been doing it for about a week now, and prior to that, I was living in a tent for about 2 months. So it started in February. I was at a place called Skydive Elsinore, and I was having a conversation with a guy named Tim, who was the general manager, or is the general manager of a place called Skydive Toledo up in Washington, where I'm at now. And he asked me if I've ever been to Washington, and I said no. And he said I should definitely come check it out, because I told him I wanted to travel this summer. And he gave me the idea to come to Skydive Toledo and come do some skydiving there. And he said it's really cool there. There's a really good vibe, and they'll let you use their land. And I could come up there and set up a tent for a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or however long I wanted to stay. Live out of a tent because it's like 70 degrees here in the summer, and just skydive during the day. And I was like, dude, that sounds awesome. I'll put a lot of consideration into that. And for money, I'm an Uber driver. So after that conversation, I went back to Vegas, and I was having another conversation with one of my passengers who was telling me that he knows that Uber drivers in Seattle make like $30 an hour, which in Vegas I was making about somewhere between like 15 and 18 dollars an hour on the really good days. Like Fridays, I could make upwards of, sometimes $20 an hour, but he said $30 an hour. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's amazing money. So a combination of talking to Tim and talking to that guy, and also getting bored with Vegas and feeling like I've already done pretty much everything fun that there is to do within that area. I decided to move up to Seattle. So after I came back from Idaho for some military duties, I went down to Skydive Elsinore for about a week and a half to get my A license, meaning I can now do skydive solo. Then I headed up to Washington, and I stopped by Colorado to go check out a concert, and also just because I'd never been to Colorado and wanted to go check it out. So I got to Skydive Toledo, and I talked to Tim, and he didn't even recognize me. He didn't even remember the conversation, which I thought was really funny. But the vibe there was great. I loved it. The view when you're skydiving is unbelievable there. It's definitely one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But I was there for about 2 weeks, and the entire time I wasn't working for Uber or Lyft because it takes a while to change from one city to another. There was an issue with my background check changing from Las Vegas to Seattle. So for, I'd say easily like a month, I was just living off of credit cards, and I had no income coming in, which put me into a decent amount of debt. So I was just camping out of the tent, and it was a blast. Finally, I got approved for Lyft to start driving up in Seattle. So I started, and it turns out the passenger I was talking to was right. $30 an hour on Fridays is pretty normal. A normal day, $25 an hour is pretty standard. The reason the wages are so high in Seattle is because the cost of living is so high here. I was talking to some people who say they pay $1,500 a month for rent, for like a one bed, one bath apartment, or like a studio apartment. So the Uber drivers out here have to make enough money to be able to pay those apartment prices. And I don't want to pay rent. I never have. I'm not a fan of paying rent. So I was living in the tent, but then after about a week, the owner of the land, the owner of the drop zone, said that I have to start paying like $12 a night to stay there, to use their land, to use their bathroom, their kitchen, all of their amenities. and I couldn't afford it. So I moved the tent up to Capitol State Forest, and I was living there for about say about a week, and that place was about an hour and a half south of Seattle. So I pretty much just set up my tent in the forest, and then I drove an hour and a half up to Seattle um, every day, and I would just drive Uber in Seattle to try to pay off the debt that I accrued, and then an hour and a half drive after driving for probably like 12 hours a day. It was a pretty long drive, so I started moving up more north. I stayed a little bit in Fort Lewis, then I stayed a little bit at I just stayed about a month in McCord Air Force Base, but they were charging me $12 per night to stay there, which it's not bad for Seattle rates. It's like $360 a month, but I'm living in a tent, so paying close to $400 a month to literally like sleep in a tent every night, and not really have great access to showers or laundry or a kitchen or anything that would really come with like a regular rent. It got pretty bad. So I decided to about a week ago, I had the idea to take all the stuff that I have, which isn't much, just whatever I can fit in my car. I got a tent, a generator. I had a home office set up in the tent, which you can see in my last video. But all that stuff was really unnecessary because I can just set up my laptop at a Starbucks whenever I want to get work done. So I had the idea that it would be cheaper just to take all the stuff that I have and just put it in a storage unit. So I went to the public storage in West Seattle, and it turns out it was right. I can store my stuff. It was just like a 5x5 storage unit. They charged me about $100 a month. So for now, I'm making somewhere between $25 and $30 an hour, and I only have to pay $100 a month in rent, which is really cool. And I think it's a really good idea. So I wanted to make this video to try to kind of like explain my reasoning for living in my car. A lot of people are confused when I say that, so I wanted to make this video to see if I can explain my ration behind that. But if you're still watching and you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. I'm going to put a lot of effort into posting videos. And then if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. So thanks for watching.